All right, here we go. We have Luis Rosado, a.k.a. Blue Boy, who's back from doing 39 years in prison. Welcome to VladTV.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you have a very powerful name that's been ringing off for quite a while, but this is your first time here, so I want to get into your whole story. So you grew up in the Lower East Side.
Lower East Side, 8th Street Avenue D.
Okay, and what were the 70s and 80s like in the LES?
That was drug central. That was the capital of heroin. Back then you had the Black Sunday, you had Executive, Toilet, Poison, Coke 45, Checkmate, just to name a few.
Got it. And what nationality are you exactly?
I'm Puerto Rican.
Okay. And you grew up primarily with your mom because your dad was locked up?
Yeah, my father was in the feds and doing state time.
Okay, what was he in the feds for?
For drugs and murder.
Wow, okay. Do you know how long he was sentenced?
He was sentenced to 26 years.
Okay.
He did 18, came home, then got arrested in 91, and did time from all the way till he passed away in 2015 in Fishkill.
Did you have any sort of relationship with him at all?
Yeah, I had a minor relationship with him because when he came home, I was with him for a little while before he went to jail. Well, I went to jail first, and then we ran into each other in Sing Sing, and we did a year together in Sing Sing, almost 2 years. I got there in January 9/7, and I left October 9/8. So all that time I spent with him.
I mean, what was that like? Like you don't really, you spend all these years not knowing him at all, and suddenly you guys are in prison together, and but you're both adults at this point. The childhood thing was never there. What was that like?
Oh man, it was a little difficult because I already had a reputation, and I was getting into stuff in Sing Sing as well. You know what I'm saying? We was in Sing Sing together, H Company, and he was the porter. He'd been there for years. At that time, he was already there for years, and it was hard, because I didn't want to do something and then worry about something happening to him for something I did. You know what I'm saying? And that, in a way, that's what happened. I got into a situation with a person, and we ended up stabbing him up. And the guy seen my father on a visit, and he swung on my father a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? But that was about it.
Yeah, crazy. You have 4 brothers, right?
Yeah, I got 4 brothers.
Okay, so you're growing up in the Lower East Side, and is your mom pretty much raising all 5 kids on her own?
Yeah.
Okay, so how tough was that growing up in a household where mom is struggling?
Yeah, it was tough. You know what I'm saying? But I've been going to juvenile homes since I was 9. You know what I'm saying? So, I wasn't really there for most of the time. I was either in the group homes or locked up in a facility upstate somewhere, So.
Okay, so at 9 years old, what starts to happen to get you in trouble?
Well, what happened was I got into a fight, and then I pushed my teacher down the stairs. He started laughing.
Okay, that'll do it.
Yeah, so they sent me away to Spofford because my mom, at the time, she wasn't there when they brought me home. When the police brought me home, she wasn't there, so they had to leave me with somebody, and I didn't have nobody. I didn't know their address like that. I could walk you there, but I couldn't. I didn't know the building, nothing like that. I could walk you there, but so they had to take me to Spofford, and that was a whole beginning of the wax of being, getting caught up in the lifestyle,
Well, you said, leading up to the situation where the shooting occurred, you said in one of your interviews that you were actually drug dealing, robbing, and really just kind of getting into it during that time.
Yeah, I was selling drugs at the age of 12. I started selling drugs at the age of 12. I was doing robberies. I done a couple of shootings. You know, we at the time, the people that I was running with, we was at war with a group of people from Allen Street. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with that street, but that's who we was at war with at the time. You know, I ended up getting shot by them, you know. So I've been through a lot of things on that side of the story, you know.
Well, at one point, while you were going through the juvenile system, you were actually locked up with Mike Tyson.
Right. I'm in contact with him now. He trying to
Okay, yeah, I've interviewed him before. Cool guy.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in contact with him now. He want me to come out there in Nevada. I can't go to Nevada. I still got parole, you know. But like I said, I had a lot of good people reach out to me. I've been fortunate to have good people, have my sons there for me, my aunt, a few good people, you know, and I can't complain. You know what I'm saying?
What was Mike Tyson like back then? Because how old? He was a teenager back then?
Yeah, I was with him in Tryon and Spofford. I was in Spofford with him when he first got the tattoo, Mike, written on his arm. I had the tattoo the same day he got his. The same person did the same tattoo for me. You know, when we was there in Spofford with the pencil lead and the thing from the checkers, the little round little things. We melt that and we make tattoos out of that. That we used to use for ink.
Okay, was Mike Tyson knocking people out in prison back then?
Yeah, listen, he had a fight with a counselor named, we was in trial, there's a counselor named Bob Stewart. He used to be a professional boxer, but his eye, he caught a bad cut over his eye, and that messed him up. You know what I'm saying? But they couldn't box no more. So when we was in trial, he used to bring boxing gloves in to spar with us, to show us how to box. And Mike hit him one time with a hammer, put him on his knees. You know what I'm saying? That was like classic, you know? like I said, he's an old friend of mine since we was kids. So, you know.
Right. And I guess you and King Tut were really close in prison.
That's my man too. There's a lot of people. Okay. You know, I know him for years too. We was all at Rikers Island. We was kids, and he's in touch with me as well. You know.
Right, and people know King Tut because he was somehow allegedly involved with the whole Tupac shooting at Quad Studios and so forth.
Yeah, but like I said, I've been around 39 years in prison. So I've been around all the guys. I can name you a bunch of guys that I've been around, that we comrades, that we friends, you know, known guys. You know what I'm saying? You know, you probably heard of Baby Sam, you know, another guy. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people I can name you that I've been around, and my man David Gilbert, you ever heard of him?
Not exactly. What did he do?
David Gilbert was involved in the New York Armored Bridge robbery, you know, in 1981. You know, he was another one. A good man, you know, respectable. There's so many people like I can name, like I've been around. It's just crazy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, quite a life. Quite a life. So I guess in 1981, you had an issue with some guy in your neighborhood, and he ended up going to the Navy because of the issue?
Yeah. That was the kid's brother that I ended up catching this case. But before I get into that, let me just say this, right? And then we could go on, if it's all right with you.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm not trying to glorify anything I've done. That's number one. And number two, I don't want the family to feel that I'm glorifying or enjoying what I'm saying about my incidents with these people. But this is part of my life. This is part of my record. This is something that can't be changed. You know what I'm saying? So when I speak about that, I don't speak for it to be glorified or to excited to anybody. You know what I'm saying? I speak about it in hope that somebody could take this interview and change their life and not fall in the same pattern that I went through. You know?
Right. And you end up serving your time for
Yeah.
the things that we talked about, which gives you the right to speak about it.
Yeah, but you know, somebody came to me, somebody reached out to me, the Cassiano family reached out to me and said they don't want me talking about that too much because they don't want me saying like that he was a bad guy and all that. And they feel that I shouldn't be talking about that too much. But out of respect for that, I don't want to get all into the whole situation concerning that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've seen some of your other interviews, so I'll go ahead and speak about, you know, what's out there and what you've spoken about before. But essentially, the guy that you got into it a couple of years before, his brother took on that beef.
Right.
Right.
That's correct.
And a situation happened where he stepped on your sneakers.
Right. He did that on purpose so I could have an issue with him. And that's what all that started from right there, you know?
Right. And from the sneaker, stepping on the sneaker, I guess he stepped on the sneaker again.
Right.
So from the sneaker incident, you guys started to tussle and he ended up shooting at you.
Right. He told me no. He told me to get out of the jam because that happened in the jam. So when he pulled out the gun on me, he told me, let's go. So as we walking out, he ended up slapping me in my face. You know what I'm saying? But he had a gun, so, you know, I didn't want to go into a whole thing with him. He had a gun. So as we were walking, some people was coming down the block to go to the jam. And as we walked, he kicked me in my ass with my butt, you know what I'm saying? But when he kicked me, that led it for me to run into the crowd, and he fired a couple shots at me. After that, I came back. You know, when I came back, that's when I shot him. I shot him with a 16-gauge shotgun.
Right. You went and got a shotgun and you came back, and from what I understand in the reports, so you shot him at point blank range?
Yeah. Once in the chest and one in his face.
Was that the first time you actually shot somebody before?
No. That's not the first time.
So you're used to shooting at people leading up to this situation?
Yeah, like I said, I've been in a couple of shootouts already. I had shot at people. I've been shot at, you know. I've been stabbed, you know.
Well, but now you're sitting here with a shotgun and a dead body and witnesses around. And what's going through your mind at this point?
I was trying to get away. After I shot him, I was trying to get away. And I did get away. I was gone for a while. But his family and friends of his family started threatening my family and threatening my friends. They thought it was involved in that. And that made me come back to New York because I was on the run in Puerto Rico, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and that made me come back. That's how the second incident happened, which happened in October. And that's when I got to the other shootout with the other kids, and I shot them up too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about this part. So there's another shootout that occurred.
Yeah.
Before you actually got locked up for the first shootout.
Right.
The first shooting. Okay. And in that second shootout, people got hit?
Yeah, 4 kids. 2 related to the victim. Two of them was cousins to the victim.
Okay. You know, in the heat of the moment, your adrenaline is going. There was guns involved, and there's he kicked you and so forth. So there's a lot of anger, and things happen at the heat of the moment. But at the point that you get away and you calm down and the adrenaline, subsides, what's going through your mind that, realizing that I just killed somebody, I might be facing life in prison or even the death penalty? I don't know if that was around during that time.
No, the death penalty was not around. But I'm already, like I said, I was already in the street. So I really, at that time, like, I didn't have no fear of going to prison because I was already in juvenile homes and all that. When that incident happened, I just came home from Gosha. I'm saying, I don't know if you're familiar with Gosha. That's a maximum security lockup. I just came home from there. So I wasn't home no more than like 90 days when I caught that case, you know? So I've always been involved with situations like that because the neighborhood I lived in, you have to build that reputation that you don't care either, you know? And I was young, so I was intrigued with all that violence and drugs and all that other stuff.
Okay, so they finally catch you. And did you, well, I mean, you didn't plead out because you end up getting 25 years to life.
Right.
So you took it to trial.
I took a trial and blue trial, and they gave me 25 to life.
And you're how old at the time?
I was 17.
How does a 17-year-old get 25 to life in their head?
It was hard, but, you know, it's what, you know, you listen, I always felt that if you did something, you know consequences come with that, even back then. So I dealt with it, you know. Then you put somebody in Rikers Island. The worst is, at that time, Rikers Island was the worst. I mean, you have to either be a predator or you have to be the prey. I decided to be a predator. So when I was in Rikers Island, I got into all types of stuff, you know, where I stabbed, cut, made shanks. I did it all, you know. I robbed people.
Well, right, because now you're in adult prison. You were in juvie all these years, but now you're in the big leagues.
Yeah.
So you're in Rikers Island, and I guess over the next 39 years, you're getting transferred every 2 years to a different prison?
Yeah, I was getting, not every 2 years, but every jail I've been to, I've never been in population no more than 24, in 2 years. Never been in no population more than 2 years. I go to the box, I stab somebody. I've been involved in 4 prison riots between prisoners. I've been involved with assault on staff. I ended up cutting up police in jail. I ended up stabbing the police in another jail. So I've been through it all, you know.
Well, when you first show up to Rikers, you're not gang affiliated or anything of that sort, are you?
I was gang member when I came to jail. I was with a gang from my neighborhood called the Wild Boys. That's in the newspapers. If you look it up, the newspapers, it got it in there.
Okay. But were the Wild Boys a big entity in Rikers?
No.
Right. Meaning that you're essentially by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess at one point you became a 5% nation?
I was a 5%er before I came home. I was a 5%er. I became a 5%er in juvie. You know what I'm saying? Then when I came home, I was still dealing with that, but I wasn't a 5%er no more. And I came to Rikers Island. A lot of the guys that I knew from back then, from the juvie, they were all in Rikers Island as well. Many of them. You know? So I was kind of all right there. You know what I'm saying?
So here you are serving your time in prison.
Yeah.
And 6 years in, you're in Elmira and a whole new situation pops off.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
All right. I got into a thing. My co-defendant was arguing with another person. And in the cause of that happening, I jumped into that conversation. And I was trying to tell the dude, listen, you're disrespecting this guy for no reason. You know his family, you know us from the street. And one thing led to another, he told me he sucked something, you know? And that, I couldn't let that go. So me and my co-defendant, we both all of us was key lock. That's a key lock company. So when they let us out for key lock, we ended up stabbing him up, you know? And he ended up not making it. My co-defendant got 12 and a half, 25, and I got 4 to 8 for that.
Okay, so you got 4 to 8 years for your involvement in a murder.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem a bit light?
Listen, we talking about New York State. They wasn't trying to. They they don't care about no prisoners dying in jail. And you got to remember, we in upstate. This is not Rikers Island. This is upstate. They don't really care about human life up there like that.
Really? So killing someone in prison is a much different penalty than killing someone on the outside.
Listen, I could name you 10 people off my hand that killed another prisoner in jail and never got no more than maybe 12 years.
Wow. Okay, so during the course, you made 56 weapons, and we have pictures of some of them. And I guess these are made from, what, mirrors, pieces of metal, just whatever you could get, toothbrushes?
Yeah, anything you get. I used to have a piece of hacksaw blade, so I used to cut a lot of the metal and then make weapons out of a lot of things. And plus,
Gotcha.
And plus in Sing Sing, we had real knives. I got a picture of one of them in my and you're gonna see it. You're gonna see a blade. We took the handle off, but the ticket says that we had a hunting blade. You know what I'm saying? We had in Sing Sing, you had all types of weapons down there, real weapons. Butterfly knives, 007. I had a Beretta buck knife. It was called Beretta, and then on the blade it said surgical steel serrated blade.
Okay. Well, the one thing about prison that for me is the reason I never went was I remember I saw the movie American Me, and it showed all the rapes and everything that happened in prison, and that was the moment that I said I'm not going to prison. Right there. Right there. That one point, me watching the movie as a teenager. Being in so many prisons and moving around so much and being in maximum security and so forth, do a lot of rapes occur in prison?
When I first came to jail, they had booty bandits. I know you're familiar with that term, right?
I mean, kind of.
Yeah, they were taking dudes' butts. And I witnessed a couple of that, like 4 different incidents. Not to go into their names and all that, but I got to see some of that in prison. And
okay.
It's sad, but that's the reality. You know what I'm saying?
Well, by 1998, you actually decided to become a Crip.
Yeah.
Now, at that time, I guess there were a lot of Bloods in the prison you were in?
Yeah.
So you decided to sort of go against that and become a Crip?
Because I never liked the bullies. You know what I'm saying? What happened was, like I explained this to Miss Charm, at that time, there was a individual there that he wasn't Crip no more. He had became Muslim in Rikers Island, and they gave their word that everything was going to be good as long as he stayed Muslim. And then when he came upstate, he came to Sing Sing, certain people was plotting to do something to him. The same people that gave their word on Rikers Island. So I told him, you come outside, don't worry about that. Ain't not gonna happen to you. So he said, I'm just trying to get a bunch of people involved, especially the Muslims, you know what I'm saying? That's my beef. I don't really want to get nobody involved. So I told him, all right. So the next day, I think he came out, and he came out with me, and we walked around the yard, nothing happened to him. So then when we went back, I told him, listen, I want you to give me everything you got on Crip. Paperwork, codes, books, anything you got to break down things about Crips. So he said, what you gonna do that for? What you want all that for? And I told him, because I'm gonna be Crip tomorrow. He said, how you gonna be Crip tomorrow? You can't just do that. I said, what you mean? I can do that. Who gonna tell me I can't do it? You know what I'm saying? That's how the beginning of thing, that's how that whole beginning of Crip thing came. So I was never officially Crip, but I just did that because I felt, now you can tell me I can't live in the yard, or you can tell me that I can't be Crip. You know what I'm saying? But I never had that problem.
Okay, and you were affiliated with the Rolling 30s?
Yeah, that's what I am, rolling 30s.
Okay, once you became a Crip, did anything change?
You know, a few problems here and there, but nothing major. I've been in a situation where I came out to the yard, and this is factual, known things by, the word of mouth all through the state. I came out to the yard one time and put a knife on the table and told them dudes, I'm in the building. You know what I'm saying? If anybody got an issue, I'll go gun to gun with them. So, nobody took that offer, and then like a lot of Damus that I knew from back then. So you gotta remember a lot of Damus that was older, we came up together. We know each other since we was kids. Like my man Soul B, Shaquille, these are known name brand of guys that was at that time was official guys. And we came up together. So it's not like no big secret that some of them was my friends at one time or another, So they wasn't allowed nobody to jump me. If anything, if they was in the facility, they made sure that if it have to be that way, that I'll get a fair one with anybody. But a lot of people didn't want that fair one because they already knew I had a reputation for stabbing people. I've been in a couple of knife fights in jail. So they ain't want that. You know what I'm saying? So they left me alone. And while I was in the jail, any Crips that came through, they was claiming their thing. That's what I was telling them. They could survive. Because I wouldn't allow nobody to do nothing to them if they came claiming they set from the beginning. So, and that went on like that for a while. But I've been stabbed by certain people, and but that come with the territory,
Well, I want to rewind for a second.
Okay.
In 1986, Larry Davis ends up getting into a shootout in the Bronx with the police.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they were investigating him for a murder. 9 police officers with 20 outside end up going into his sister's apartment looking for him. They find him. He ends up shooting 6 cops and getting away.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this huge manhunt that happens for like 17 days. He takes some hostages. Ultimately, he ends up giving himself up. It goes to trial, and he beats it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he proved that the cops were dirty. I guess they were like dealing drugs themselves, and he was somehow involved in some drug cop type shit.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially he gets out. Now, at that point, you've never met Larry Davis, but you heard the news while you were in prison.
I was in Auburn, 1986. I was in Auburn box. I heard it through the headphone, listening to the news. And I didn't know him, but, I'm from the streets. So when you hear dudes shoot the police, they're like, what? Oh, shit, yeah, you feel like, okay, he did that. Because at that time, you got to remember, Eleanor Bumper got killed by police. Michael Stewart got killed by the police. I could go on and on and on. Multiple names of people back then at that time that were being killed by the police. And when Eleanor Bumper, she was 66 years old. They tried to evict her out of her apartment, and ESU went in there and shot her, blew her hand off, and shot her with a shotgun in her chest. After they disabled her, because when they shot her in the arm, she had a knife. So when they blew her hand away, she wasn't no more a threat because she didn't have no knife. But they still shot her in the chest with a shotgun. That's a known case. And you got Michael Stewart, a guy that was a graffiti writer. They choked him to death on the train. You know what I'm saying? Because he was writing graffiti and it got into a big thing. So a lot of things happened back then that a lot of people felt, yeah, what he did was a revolutionary move. And you can't take that from him on that part. But as time goes along, you find out he was working for the police. He was doing all type of foul stuff. He was killing same black people and Hispanic people that was trying to rise up from the ghetto. he was killing them for the police. So, you know, that don't make him a good guy, you know.
Well, he beat that case in terms of the shooting of the 6 cops,
Mm-hmm.
and he was acquitted of all charges except for a gun charge.
Right. Got 5 to 15.
5 to 15 for the gun charge. While he's serving the 5 to 15,
Right.
there was another murder that came up, which he was found guilty of, and he gets 25 to life.
Right.
And by this time, Larry Davis is like a folk hero, in the same way you describe him. A lot of people felt that way. Oh, here's some guy that stood against the system, that didn't comply, that didn't just let the cops come and arrest him and potentially kill him and so forth. He fought back. He shot a bunch of them. They all survived, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, in certain neighborhoods, this guy was like a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up getting sentenced in Shawangunk.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Shawangunk Correctional Facility, where you were sentenced as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where you were serving time at that point.
We both serving time there.
Yep, you guys were both serving time there.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you guys run into each other and get to know each other on some level?
No, before all that, we was in a box together in Southport. You know what I'm saying? So we already had an issue in Southport. But when I came out in 9-5, I was in Windy with him. But you had a couple of old timers, they was Muslims at the time. They didn't want me to do nothing to him. You know what I'm saying? So being that these old timers did me a favor when I was younger and kept, I had a thing with the Muslim at one time. They stopped the issue that was going to happen to me. So I owed them that. You know what I'm saying? I owed them that favor. So they came and said, yo, listen, Larry's here, and we want you to leave him alone. We don't want you to get into nothing with him. Leave him alone. Do us that favor. So I did that out of respect for them. Not for him, but for them. So when we end up in Shawanga now, I wasn't speaking to that man. I ain't had no issue with him. He stood his distance, I stood mine. But as time went along, he started stepping into my business. Because they had opened a sex offender program across the hall. We was in a program called Close Supervision Unit, where everybody in this block, there's 68 people in this block. Everybody there was high profile. Escapees, murder in prison, assault on staff, highly violent against inmates. So we were all in that same block. And I got into an issue with some rapo dudes. A dude that raped a 9-year-old boy. So I had an issue with him. My target was him. My target was never Larry. But I knew that he was like acting like he was protecting these guys because he was dealing with them guys. You know what I'm saying? And that's how that whole situation erupted. People keep thinking that I just went out. You got guys like Al Sharpton speaking about that the police paid the correction department $15,000 to get him assassinated. That's all lie and phony. Make up stories. If you look at the history of Al Sharpton, he's nothing but another piece of shit. Another guy that was wearing a wire for the FBI and was involved in corruption and all that himself. So how can you take anything he said? People keep forgetting about the Tawana Brawley incident, where it was a big incident upstate, and he protested that some white guys raped her and put shit on her and all that. Kind of found out that was a lie. So he's an ambulance chaser. So he started that whole situation by telling people that the Department of the NYPD paid the correction department $15,000 to get him assassinated. That's a lie. That never happened.
Well, on February 20th, 2008, around 7 p.m., a correctional officer that was overlooking the yard saw a bunch of inmates kind of congregating around an argument between, I guess, you and Larry Davis.
Mm-hmm.
He had a walking stick?
He had a cane.
A cane, yeah.
But he only got that when I got to that facility. He didn't need the cane. He got into 3 fights there before I got to that jail. So he burned one dude hair, knocked him out and burned his hair. Another dude, he punched him and got his eye bust open on the table. And another dude, him and another dude got into a fight in the yard. But he didn't need the cane. When I got to the jail, he figured that and got a cane saying that he need the cane. Then he told somebody that he got a legal weapon now to walk around with, because he thought I was going to do something to him, which I never had planned to do nothing to him unless he violated me. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happened. He got involved in that situation. I went to the yard to stab the rapo. That's a fact. And he talking about, it ain't going down like that. What you mean it ain't going? And I ended up stabbing him. And if he was the actual target, I would kept stabbing him because I was already caught. I don't try to get away. You know what I'm saying? So I left him when he fell on the floor. I left him there, and I went chasing the other guy, 2 other people. And I'm chasing them around the yard back and forth, and I got tired of chasing them. And I told the guy, yo, stop right there, because he was supposed to be a tough guy. And he didn't want to do that. He said, yo, why you trying to stab me? You know what I'm saying? And that's when Larry got up from over there, where I left him at, creeped up behind me and hit me in the back of the head with the cane twice. And when he did that, I thought the police did that. When I spun around, it was just me and him now. And when he went to swing again, I rushed him and I started stabbing him. That's how he got the stab wound under his armpit and all that. And he fell. As he stumbled, I tried to get on top of him, but he wouldn't let me get on top of him. He kept doing some dead cockroach thing. Every time I went this way, he would come with me. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it went for a while. And then at one time, the police was creeping up behind me or on the side of me trying to grab me. And when I spun towards him, that gave him an opportunity to kick me in my face. And when he did that, I grabbed his pants leg and stabbed him 2 times in his leg. And one of them severed the fetus artery on the back of his leg. And that's how he ended up dying. But I stabbed him 13 times. Collapsed his lung and severed his fetus artery.
So the COs rush in, they take Larry to the infirmary, but at the prison you were at, there was no trauma unit.
Right.
So they tried to transport him to an actual real hospital with the trauma unit, but by the time he got there, he died.
Right, he passed away. But if they would have tied his leg, let me say that, if they would have tied his leg, he might have survived. He would have lost his leg, but he would have survived. Even with a collapsed lung, he could have survived with that too. But they didn't care about him. Listen, you don't know how many officers, good job, but I didn't get no glorified for doing that to him. You know what I'm saying? I did that because he got involved in my business. If he would have minded his business, he would have still been here talking shit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't go out my way to do nothing to him. He wasn't my target. You know what I'm saying? And that's what people keep bringing up. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you got a lot of people that don't even know me telling stories about that I got paid by the police, that this was a hit. Listen, he been cut on Rikers Island? He was been cut before. He been beat up before. So everybody was a hit? You know what I'm saying? It's just that who I am makes it bad thing. I'm Crip, Puerto Rican, you know what I'm saying? And I did something to somebody that some people believe is a folk hero. But he wasn't no goddamn folk hero. You know what I'm saying? He just happened to be caught in a situation where he shot some officers. Mm-hmm.
Well, Larry Davis was 41 years old at the time that he passed away. And like you mentioned, a lot of people were actually celebrating his death.
Yeah.
So former New York Mayor Ed Koch said, "I believe that nobody should take joy in the murder of another individual. But if I told you I was weeping, I would be lying.
Yeah.
He was a vicious person. If there's any justice anywhere, he's rotting in hell."
Mm-hmm.
Former Lieutenant Vernon Geberth, who actually was the commander in the shooting that actually happened with Larry Davis, he said, "Justice has finally prevailed. The prison system did what the criminal system could not."
Mm-hmm.
So literally, they were happy that you killed this guy.
Yeah, a lot of people was. Not only.
Okay. Now, in terms of the racial part of things, here you are, Puerto Rican, you're shooting this famous black, you killed this famous black man. Was there any sort of race riots that broke off, popped off because of this, or not really?
Nah, not really. Nothing really happened like that. But you always had some people like they liked me because of that. You know what I'm saying? And you had some that I had to step to when I came out the box after doing 10. I did 9 years, 6 months, and 3 weeks in the box for that incident. So when I got out, there's a few people that I had to deal with, you know what I'm saying, and speak to them directly, But other than that, I ain't had no issues.
Right. Well, you were actually arrested for the murder. You were indicted on 9 felony charges, including 3 different counts of murder, assault, criminal possession of a weapon, possession of prison contraband. The murder charges actually carried life without parole charges, but ultimately you pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter, and you were given, like you said, 10 years to run concurrent with your life sentence.
No.
You're 25 to life? No?
Nah, consecutive.
Consecutive?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so were you technically given any extra time, or since you have a 25 to life, is it just almost the same thing?
No, that added on. So it would be, instead of doing 25 to life, I'm doing 35 to life now.
Aha. Right. Because I think in 2007, a couple of years before that, you went up before the parole board and got denied. So you're getting denied a bunch of years.
Right. And then that was in 2007 I got hit. I was supposed to go back 2009, but being that I caught that case with Larry, I never went back to the board until 2017 because I caught the 10 years. Then after that, I went back to the board the second time, 2019. And then from there, I went back to the board last year. This year. Last year, excuse me,
Okay.
last year.
Well, I just want to talk about this 10 years.
Okay.
So you were given 10 years, but the whole 10 years was in solitary confinement?
Yeah, I did 9 years, 6 months, and 3 weeks. I was supposed to get out the box. I caught a bunch of more tickets while I was in the box, right? Assault on staff. I got caught with 30 X-Acto blades, a ceramic knife, a jailhouse-made knife, and a half a hacksaw blade, which I got pictures of that too,
Yeah.
So that I was supposed to get out the box in December 26, 2022. Originally, that was my last time that I was supposed to get out the box. But being that when I went to 5 Point, the superintendent kept giving me time cuts, and I ended up getting out because of my good behavior. I got out in 2017, September 1st. So that would have been 9 years, 6 months, and 3 weeks.
Okay. Well, you get out of the box at that point, but you're still in prison.
Yeah, I'm still in prison. Yeah, I ain't.
Right. Yeah. Okay. What was it like to walk out of the box after 10 years?
At first, it was difficult because you see a bunch of people coming down the hallway. You're not used to seeing 1,000 dudes coming at you like that. So I was kind of a little paranoid at first, and I got to be good. I got to be conscious of the surroundings, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm Crip. I just killed this guy that's supposed to be so-called a hero to some. And I had my own issues before I went to the box with other people. So, you have to be on guard, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. So from the point that you get out of the box to, I guess, December 2021 is when they let you out completely?
Yeah, I got out, yeah.
Okay. So now, as you're going through these last few years, you still have the 2 life in your sentence.
Yeah.
So technically, they could keep denying you every single year forever until you die.
Yeah.
Right? So you have that hanging over your head. Are you thinking at this point, I mean, here you are, you're 30-something years into your sentence, you have 3 bodies, total, 2 of them in prison. Are you thinking that you're going to get out, or do you think that you're going to die in prison?
No, I thought I was going to die in prison. I ain't thought I was going to get out. Even when I went to the board, the last board, 2 of the board members let me go and 1 didn't. He refused to let me go. But being that there was 2 of them, they let me go, They gave me parole.
Okay. And that was 2021?
Yeah.
So is that how it works? Three parole board members, if 2 of them vote, then they go with the majority?
Yeah.
Or it has to be, so it's not unanimous?
Yeah.
Okay. When you found out that you just got, parole, how'd you feel? At that point, it had been 39 years.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. When I got the paper, the envelope, I felt it. It was skinny. I figured usually when you get the fat paper, the peel paper, all that's in there. So when I got the skinny paper, I was shocked. So I sat on my bed for a minute. I slowly opened it up. I peeked inside. I could see on the top it said, parole granted. I closed the paper. I said, hold up. I want to make sure. You know what I'm saying? So I opened the paper again, read it, and then I gave it to my neighbor, Tony. I said, yo, tell me what that says on that paper, because I see something. I want to make sure. So he said, oh shit, you out of here. Congratulations, you're going to be free. So it was touching. That I'm finally going to get, the thing is that I lost so many family members. So it was good and bad at the same time.
Right, because your mother died in prison and you couldn't go to the funeral.
Right, they denied me.
Yeah.
The superintendent of the facility said that he feels that I'm too violent and I'm a security risk for to be let to go to the funeral.
Yeah. I mean, was that the hardest thing you think you went through while locked up?
That was worse. The thing is that I was never there for my kids, because my son, I left him out here. So that was one of the worst things too, not being there for my son.
Yeah. Well, because your son ended up going to prison as well, right?
Yeah, he did time. A few times he went into jail, but he did time in prison. But that's not the life. I always told him that's not the life I want for him, But he been to prison a couple of times.
I mean, what did you go through as a father? Because, you're trying to do what you can to give your son guidance, but you're not there ever at all. Like you're locked up the whole time. And then before you know it, now he's following your footsteps. And now you guys are locked up at the same time in different prisons, but you can't really do anything about it. I assume it's a very helpless kind of feeling trying to go through that.
It's hard. And it brought a lot of pain to me, because I never want my son to follow that life. But if you're not there, And you can't be the father structure. He gonna do what he feel like. You know what I'm saying? He gonna rebel. He gonna, feel, well, I can do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with because I didn't never want him to come to prison. Plus, I don't want nobody to do nothing to him because of things I done. So.
Right. And really, if you take a step back and think about it, you basically went through the exact same thing that happened with you with your dad. Here you are growing up with your dad in prison, and then you have a kid, and then you go to prison, and then once again, the cycle repeats itself, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Okay, so you get out in December of 2021. Now, you were originally locked up in 1983?
I got locked up in 1982.
82. Okay. So from 1982 to 2021, you were away from the world. Yeah. When you went in, Michael Jackson was the biggest music star in the world. There were no computers. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. And suddenly you're thrown into this world of social media, the internet, Uber, Postmates. Was it like stepping into an alien planet in a way?
Yeah, it is. I'm still trying to figure out the phone. I be wanting to throw the phone out the window. But everything takes a process. Listen, when I came to prison, it wasn't in certain buildings. It's not there no more. They built condos. They got a whole bunch of different buildings in my neighborhood. You got people living there that I never even thought would be living there. And you got they got a precinct on my block, right? So grew up, they got a new precinct right there on my block. So, it was a shock to a lot of things, but I was ready for a lot of that because I kept reading in prison. I did a lot of reading. And I study a lot. So I got to really be aware of a lot of things before I came home anyway. So a lot of things wasn't too much of a shock to me, but certain things was, seeing certain different things and, it was kind of hard at first, but I'm starting to get the hang of it now,
Well, right. You come out at 56 years old. 39 of those years were spent in prison, meaning for the vast majority of your life, you have to ask, people when to take a shower, when you can eat, where you could go, where you're placed. You know what I'm saying? And also in a society where stepping on someone's shoe could lead to a murder, a dirty look. You're having a bad day. Someone claims that you looked at them bad. And then next thing you know, people are getting stabbed and killed and so forth. It's a completely different society that you've walked into. Was there, and someone who came with a lot of violence, and you don't want to go back. Right?
No, I definitely don't want to go back to prison.
Because beating up someone on the outside ain't like beating up someone on the inside where they just, no one saw nothing, everyone walks away.
Yeah.
Where one false move, because when you got out, are you still on probation or anything of that sort? Or
yeah, I'm on parole.
Free?
I'm on life parole.
Meaning that if you do something wrong, you could potentially get sent in probably for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I would go back to the board 2 years. I have to go back to the board. If I get caught up in some new stuff, yeah, I can get back. I go back to prison.
I mean, what's it like just kind of living your life and going through society and, maybe feeling like this person disrespected you unknowingly, or this person slighted you, or this person didn't treat you the way you feel like you need to be treated?
Well, it's hard, but I've been through that already. I had 2 incidents already since I've been in the street. I had some, I'll go to try to get a phone, and I had some guys, for no reason, tell me, yo, what the fuck are you looking at? And I'm like, I'm not even looking at the dude. He just, and I'm like trying to avoid that. And he said, you know me? He started walking towards me. So I had to jump on the bike and leave. And that was the hardest thing for me because, my man, you talking to a lion. You a poodle compared to me. You know what I'm saying? You're not even ready for that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I have to think about my son. You know what I'm saying? I got to think. I got my stepson with me, and I got my son, and I love both of them. So I don't want to go back to prison and for some nonsense. So I had to walk away.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been tough considering how doing that in prison has a very different kind of, ramification.
Yeah,
right?
That's a fact. And that's why I'm saying that for me, it was the hardest thing so far. Because, oh man, I'm not even bothering you. Why are you bothering me? And you don't realize who I am. You don't know who I am. And, you're playing with death. And I was saying in my mind, I got to think for this bozo. Because in reality, I would do something to him right there. That's it. I'll be in the newspaper all over again. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, man. I bet you, I will bet money on this that he's going to end up seeing this video and start to think like, damn, like I almost tripped off the wrong person. Like,
yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Then I had another guy, for no reason, he coming out the store, bump into me on some real get out the way type of stuff. And I, said, excuse me, you don't know how to say excuse me? He said, what? Fuck out of here. Kept walking. Those are hard things to deal with because in prison, you disrespect me, I'm going to get you. I was that type of person, but I got to live out here a different way. And sometimes it gets hard, you know what I'm saying? And, it's hard, you know what I'm saying? Especially when you've been violent all your life, you know what I'm saying? To now step away from things and walk away, it get difficult, you know what I'm saying? But, I don't want to go back to prison. I don't.
Yeah.
But, I also not going to let nobody hurt me either, I never want to go back to prison. That prison stuff right there is the worst, you know what I'm saying? Even now, that prison's not like it used to be. Now you got guys with laptops in their cell. So a lot of things are changing in prison, but I don't want to go back there, not for no nonsense,
Well, I remember when I interviewed King Tone, who used to be the leader of the Latin Kings.
Yeah.
And he spent a bunch of time in prison. And I said, what was that last day like? And the answer actually surprised me. He actually said that, he was in tears because he was leaving behind his closest friends, that he had made all these relationships during these years and so forth. And he was going back into into the world where he felt that people didn't care about him in the same type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And Ohio, I walked out, and I remember about 200 people on the fence. And they hold it tight, and they made me want to come back. Ain't that some shit? I was ready to tell freedom, fuck it, I can't leave them behind. There's some good people that done their bid, deserve to be home, that communities have forgotten about. And I feel guilty for leaving. Because as a gangster, as a leader, as King Tone, as Bachi, some things I shouldn't be here for. That's not your business, the DA's business, nobody's business. But some of them guys deserve to be home with me.
Here you are, like I said, 39 years in prison. I'm sure you made friendships and everything else like that. Was there a level of like, damn, like now I got to go out in this world and I don't know as many people and, I have to now adjust to a whole different social structure that, I haven't had to deal with before.
Yeah, I've been going through that too. I left a couple strong comrades of mine in jail. You know what I'm saying? I mean, guys that we was in the field You know what I'm saying? Like my man Zig, Stink, Scheme. These are all comrades of mine that, I left behind, and many more. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole list of them. But I left good people that I got mad love for more than some people in my family, because these guys were here with me.
Yeah. I mean, if you could do it all over again, where do you think that things went wrong for you? If you could, the 56-year-old blue boy could go back to that 16, 17-year-old and give him some advice, what would that be?
I would tell him not to go in the street life. Stay in school, try to build something better than going back to prison. You know what I'm saying? Or see in prison. Because when you don't have no father figure there, it's hard to be a certain way. Because now you the father in some way. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you can relate with that, but that's the only thing. Like, I never had a father figure. I looked up to dudes in the streets. The guys that was older than me, those are people I looked up to. And they was in the streets. They was selling drugs. They was shooting people, So those are the people I looked up to. So if I could go back, I would try to have my family move somewhere else, you know what I'm saying, and start over somewhere better. Because the environment I was in at that time, it was drugs. If anybody know about back then, 80s, that was the Lower East Side was the major drugs market. You had every known drug that you can talk about. They came from Lower East Side. Pressure Point came about because of that. The drugs down there. And many things came about that. So if I could change that, I would. You know what I'm saying? But that's a fantasy. We can never do that. So we got to go forward with what we know now.
Yeah. I mean, now you're back in New York again, and you see the gang shit that still is happening in New York. Mm-hmm. With drill music, there's been just a bunch of murders that happened recently, mm-hmm. that was allegedly tied to, gang members dissing each other in records and that type of thing, as well as, a couple of years back, Bobby Shmurda and Robbie Rebel got, swept up in the whole GS9 thing, which, is not your Crip set, but is still related in certain types of ways. And you see, Crips and Bloods that originally, started out in the West, now has really taken a real foothold in New York and the East Coast. As someone that's lived through all this and see it as someone who's older now, when you see the gangs and you see the kids and you see the murders and you see the prison time that everyone's getting, what is your advice to everyone that's going through this? And I feel like it's been getting worse recently.
Well, just to expound on that for a moment, I'm trying to start a program so I could talk to the kids, like in schools, juvenile homes, you know what I'm saying, and explain to them, if you keep going down this path, this is what's going to lead you, you know what I'm saying, to the prison. Violence is always going to be there regardless, you know what I'm saying. But if you could save one child or two, then I feel we did something. My thing is to try to enlighten the youth on better ways to deal with things than just violence.
Yeah. Like we talked about during the interview, 3 people died by your hands. Do you ever worry about their families or their close friends ever trying to get revenge, or their kids, ever trying to get revenge? Because like you said, Larry Davis, he was loved by a bunch of people. The other 2 people have families, potentially have children and so forth. Or do you feel that at this point, enough time has passed that no one's really trying to really risk their lives or step to you or anything of that sort?
Listen, that right there, there's always gonna feel somebody's gonna feel heartache behind the things I do. Just like this interview. You know, we're talking about this, you know, you don't think some people are gonna pick this up. They might be family members and feel a certain way, you know?
Yeah.
But like I said from the beginning, I'm not trying to glorify what I've done. I did my time for that. You know what I'm saying? But I understand. And if they come, listen, I expect that. I'm not a fool. I've been dodging knives in prison for 39 years. So I'm aware that things could happen tomorrow, next week, maybe next year. You know, because anything can happen. I'm not a fool about that, you know. But what can we do? We ain't gonna be able to change that. All thing I can do is try to avoid it as much as possible. You know, that's all I can do. You know, I can't do nothing else about that. You know, and I understand. If they did something to me, I would understand. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be mad. You know, it come with the territory. There was a comrade of mine. He did 40 years, right? He was from Hell's Kitchen. And his name was Flint, right? Jimmy Flint. He went home from prison after 40 years. He was down with the Westies. When he killed somebody, they had a bunch of brothers back then when he came to prison. 40 years later, he went home. And the building where he killed the guy no longer exists. There's a parking lot there. But when they killed Flint, they wrapped him up in a rug and put him in a parking lot, right where that building used to be at. So it can happen. People don't forget. Because if a guy cut your face or stabbed you up, are you going to forget that guy?
No.
So there it is. So I know we all got to pay the piper. We all do.
Right. I mean, look at, for example, the Alpo situation.
Yeah, but he was a scumbag. He was supposed to been got that. You know what I'm saying? That dude was a rat and a piece of shit. He was supposed to been got that. Years when he first came home. He riding around, motorcycle, dudes respecting him because he didn't tell on nobody from Harlem. What? But meanwhile, he made a video glorifying all the people he killed and where he killed them at. So he was supposed to been got that. That dude was a scumbag, a piece of shit that got all the dudes in D.C. looking at us like we scumbags. So I was happy when he got killed. I was jumping for joy. Yeah, they finally got that scumbag. You know?
Well, yeah. And what I was going to say is he was actually in witness protection in Maine, which he could have easily lived out the rest of his days without any level of static. But he decides to come back to Harlem, you know, after killing Rich Porter, after potentially killing other people in that area or beating people up and stabbing them and the such. And we don't really know what happened in that situation, but being in Harlem definitely contributed to his murder.
That's right.
That's just a given.
Yeah.
Do you still go back to Lower East Side and hang out and so forth, or not so much?
I live in the Lower East Side.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not hiding. Listen, I'm not hiding for nobody. I walk around, you know, everybody know I'm in the Lower East Side. If somebody really want to see me, I'm not hiding. I'm not creeping around corners, peeking around buildings. I walk around normally. I ride motorcycle, you know. I got a electric bike. I be riding around. So I'm not like I'm in a car dipping down. I'm not hiding, you know. For what? Because when it's time to go, it's time to go. You know what I'm saying? My thing is that if you're ready to bring your ass here, then you got to expect me to bring mine too. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do that. Like I said, I don't want to go back to prison. I don't never want to kill another person. But if you come hunting for me, then expect me for hunting you. You know? That's the reality. You know?
Well, you mentioned the snitching thing throughout the interview, and you have a certain, hatred towards snitches and rats.
And rapos and child molesters. Don't forget them.
Right. You yourself never cooperated during all the time that you were in prison. I'm sure there is probably certain cases where you were around certain situations where they probably could have given you certain benefits by cooperating, which I assume you said no. But when you look at the big picture of what's happening in the prison system, most people cooperate, right?
That's the reality.
Yeah.
You got dudes out here right now that told on people and living good. And like I said, I used to keep a file cabinet. When I mean file cabinet, I used to have files of dudes that was rats. They out here, some of them out here, walking around, living a life. We outnumbered right now. You know what I'm saying? Rats today, they glorify. A dude could be a rat, but he getting money, all that go out the window. It doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, Tekashi was the first rapper that told on everybody, took the stand,
perfect example.
Pointed everyone out, giving out, I think he gave out something like 200 years or something, thanks to his testimony, came out and had hit songs. Yeah. And had Nicki Minaj doing songs with him and the such. But my question is that, you have the street code of not ratting, not cooperating and so forth. But the people that don't do that, when they get out, what's the reward? What's the prize? Because usually they get out, there's not a bag of money waiting for them. There's not a house saying, hey, thank you so much for holding us down and not dragging us into your case. Here's a mansion that you could now live in for the rest of your days. That don't happen. The dudes do 20, 30, 40 years, come out fucked up, broke, trying to figure out how to rebuild their lives. And the dudes that they protected oftentimes don't do anything for them.
Yeah. But see, in my case, I was blessed with good people. When I came home, Bobby Smurder looked out for me. You know what I'm saying? And I had people come to me and here's this for you. I could never say how much I appreciate the love that I received by so many good people.
Well, look, man, Blue Boy, you've lived the majority of your life in prison under the harshest possible conditions. 10 years in solitary, always having to watch your back, having to carry weapons 24/7. But through all that, you're actually, unbroken. You came out completely sane. There are a lot of dudes that, which I'm sure you saw, who couldn't make it through that, who ended up, having their mind snap and just going insane or hanging themselves in their cell or in solitary confinement, or, just going into drugs and just overdosing or just becoming, completely addicted to it. You come out completely lucid, intelligent, smart, well-spoken, and fully aware of everything you did and taking responsibility for everything you did. There's no, at no point in this interview do I feel like you're presenting yourself as a victim, how things were out of your control, how it was unfair that you were, living in this family at the time and so forth. You did what you did and you did your time and now you're allowed to tell your story about it. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you coming through, man. And, use the experience, and we don't glorify, these types of stories either. Like we try to present these stories because at the end of the day, hip hop has marketed Crips and Bloods like no other gangs in the history of the planet. Mm-hmm. A local couple of gangs now have songs written about them. There's Crips and Bloods in Vietnam and Europe and Asia and it's of all different races, Asian, Latino, white, black. There's white Crips. There's everything now, man. Yeah,
that's a fact.
And but the reality is that going down this road leads to a life like yours. ultimately. And I think that's what people really have to learn, that yes, it's glorified, and yeah, it's cool to wear your rags and have your homies around to do your dirt for you and so forth, but it all comes at a price. And I think you really illustrated that price very well.
Yeah, definitely did. I'm still going through it. I'm still paying for it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like I said, we all got to learn from our mistakes. You know what I'm saying? You can't learn something if you never been taught to learn it. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you got to go through it to really understand it. You know, and I try to keep it real. No fronting about it, no acting about it. This is what it is. Raw. You know what I'm saying? And that's about it.
Of course, man. Of course. Well, Blue Boy, man, I appreciate you coming in and sharing your story. And, just hoping the best for you to live out the rest of your days in peace, which is something you didn't get to experience the most of your life. No altercations, and I always say this in my interviews, like my goal is to not have a physical altercation for the rest of my life. Yeah. That's what my goal is. I haven't always been successful in this goal, but that has been my goal for decades now. And if that's what your goal is, and that there's a reason for you to be out here and not get caught up in the moment, not get caught up in the ego, not get caught up in your emotions, you could live a very cool, peaceful, fruitful life, help, be around your kids, have a woman, build a business, make money, go on vacations, eat at restaurants, and all the stuff you didn't get to experience all these years, man. So I wish you all the best, and I appreciate you coming in.
And I appreciate you having me, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. Take care.
You too.